Hello everyone, Noel here. Several of you have asked the question, so how do we interpret the school data? And to facilitate you to do that, I thought it would be helpful for us to create three resources. The first one is explaining what we mean by, confidence. How confident are we with a particular value or a particular representation of the population? And then finally, we're going to apply those understandings in order to evaluate the data. So this is the data that we have, or one representation of it anyway. Look at what you notice straight away. They're talking about means. Now, there are lots of different sorts of means. We're going to concern ourselves here with only two kinds. The first one is the mean. That is a number that you get by sampling a population divided by the number of individuals within that population. You could think of it as the average of that population. It could be an average or a mean of anything. For example, age, which we're going to talk about shortly. So several of you have said that you feel quite stuck, which is why I've decided to develop these three separate videos to assist you with your understanding. This is Mike. He's an education student, so we can't show you his face. He's a recent graduate, and you'll be pleased to know that he earned a place in a local school. Now, let's look at Mike as part of our population. So if we look at his age in years and something about him, well, he's 24, and for reasons quite incomprehensible to me, he likes Elvis Costello music. He's single and he's just taken up a job in a regional school. Now, apart from the issue with the Elvis Costello music, what is it about him that you would think of as representative of the population? Well, probably not much, because if you look at the teaching profession, not very many of them are around age 24. In fact, the bulk of them are significantly older than that. So if we took this sample of one individual and we recognized him as our person with whom we were going to associate all other teachers, how accurate do you think we'd be with that representation, average age 24? Well, probably not very. So I wanted to show you a way in which we could sample the population in such a way that we would get closer to the average age or the mean age of that population. So we need to have a sample size bigger than 1. So let's increase that to 5, and let's take the average or the mean age of the individuals. And as you can see here, as we add a couple of more elderly members of the teaching profession, like myself, I'm 150, which would kind of skew the numbers a fair bit towards the upper end, as we see here. Now, let's add a couple more members of the population, 15, 50, 500. And so, what do you notice about where those individuals are occurring? Well, as we get up to 15 individuals and we take the average age of this sample has declined significantly. Let's add 10 more and we get an increase. Let's add another 10 more, say. And as we go across the screen, we're just adding the number of new members who we have asked the age-inappropriate question, how old are you? And then we divide by the total number of people in that population size. So what we're saying is Each of those grey stars represents the average age of the population. But let's look at this for a moment. Over on the right-hand side, do you see those last 2 or 3 stars? That's the average age of the population. Do you see how it's becoming more and more constant, where we've pretty much got quite a degree of consistency when we get up to around 500 individuals, and the average age of that population happens to be about 51.2. How certain are we of how representative that average age is? We're going to talk about that in the next video. As I said, in the next vignette, we'll talk a little bit about confidence and how confident you can be around a particular value. And then we'll be able to look more carefully and more closely at what it is to be a mean or an average. And the mean or average, if you look at those blue boxes, that's the state mean numeracy level. So that's the average of every student in the state. That's the score they achieved. Now you'll notice in our other populations, the green bar on the right-hand side of 2011, you'll notice that's a little bit higher, and then you'll notice something funny about those lines in the top of the bar. I'm going to be talking about that as a measure of confidence next. Until then, stay tuned.